You are watching this intuitive public TV broadcast, and I am here with our friend of the network, Sol Luckman. Hello, Sol. It is really, really awesome that we're getting to do this.
Hey there, Max. Thanks for having me on. It's been a long time. I told you before we came on, I was really looking forward to chatting.
Things have been happening, and a lot of the things that have been happening are part of what I often think of as the super secret audio project that we've been talking about for a long time, and I've been offering tidbits in public posts about, but we haven't been saying very much about it. And it's integrally related to my trajectory in recovering from physical circumstances that most people think are not possible to recover from. And a lot of that is because of the delving I and others have gotten to do in your work, in your books, in your research.
That's just wild to me. The application of it in these areas, I understand some of the possibilities there, and I've thought about them even years ago, but to take up the baton and move forward with it the way you've done is really just wonderful, and I'm just filled with gratitude that um, you found me and I found you, and this is unfolding the way it is.
It's really just going to kind of take a moment because there are amazing parts of this. So, my day today, first of all, let me say, here, let me put this here. There we are. Um, did you know that you scheduled us on the Mayan Zolkin calendar day called Eagle or Birds?
Oh no, I did not.
You didn't know that? I just made that connection. I knew that that was the day, but suddenly I was thinking about the ways that birds have been appearing in all of these situations related to me exploring your work and our groups exploring your work. One of the things that's happened is that, so I've been talking a lot in public about how I've been gradually regaining my ability to read, and a lot of my regaining my ability to read has had to do with Regenetics. It's had to do with the subjects that you talk about in your fiction and nonfiction books. And just actually, kind of right in the middle of where I have been reading and rereading the review copy of Get Out of Here Alive, which I think you are releasing in March. Is that
Yes,
right?
March 20th.
Um, that book, so I'm gonna go to, I have notes here, but um it my day today was just another example of these really amazing energetic initiatory experiences that I keep having in the same general vibrationality with what your work conveys, at least to me, and my experience with your work when we talk about it in groups. um, I don't have something else that does what that does. And communicating what that does is such a huge thing. Um, I've been rehabbing my ability to read, but recently, somewhere in the middle of reading Get Out of Here Alive, I started drawing figures again. I've been drawing abstract art. I've been making abstract art of all these different kinds, or like sometimes I'll put words in the middle of like a design or something. But I haven't been able to draw figures for years, almost at all. It's a different part of the brain. I started drawing birds.
Wow.
And your work, there's so much about birds with the language of the birds and all of these other aspects of birds and the energy of birds. So while I'm talking about birds and while I'm getting my notes, I'm going to put this here. And oh, that's one of my birds.
I like that.
um, this one is one of your birds. So today is eagle or birds in the Mayan Zolkin calendar. So I took birds just in the last 15 minutes or something like that. I went and I got all of my favorite bird paintings from your Pixels website. Let me get that banner here so that people can go see that. Here is the URL at the bottom of the screen. A lot of this artwork, there are originals for sale right now, and they're really, really gorgeous. So in this series of bird paintings by Sol Luckman, you'll notice a lot of the bird paintings are of black and white birds.
Yeah.
And I particularly chose birds with black and white in them because sometime when I was younger, and then particularly when I was in high school, I became the great magpie. And when I was reading Get Out of Here Alive, you're describing some particular energetic practices that that have touch points with things that I've studied for 20 or 25 years. I don't know exactly how long, because I have this big 10-year gap where I couldn't read and couldn't remember anything.
The lost decade.
And there is one particular thing that you're talking about in that book, near the end of the book. You're talking about completing an energetic circuit for the microcosmic orbit or similar. And you're talking about the tongue on the roof of the mouth. And when I went exploring, because I remembered it from what I had read a long time ago, and I was trying to remember what I was remembering, and what I found was that the tongue on the top, on the roof, on the roof of the mouth, on the hard palate, it is referred to in some traditions as the middle magpie bridge.
Fascinating.
Have you ever heard that?
You know, I think I have a long time ago when I was studying Qigong. I think that came up. I
Yeah.
don't know if that was from my teacher or from another student or at a workshop, but that rings a bell. But I haven't thought about it in years. And there's a magpie painting. That one sold a long time ago. That
It's
one,
beautiful.
I always liked that one.
So there have been this confluence of magpies for me that have been coming back in at a time when I'm experiencing major energetic changes. I don't know what the dates were that I did my Regenetics potentiation with the worldwide potentiation ceremony that you were offering on a month-to-month basis. And that's still going, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a free ceremony. So usually this month was different because of some commitments, but it's
Mhm.
usually the first Sunday of every month in the evening, 10 o'clock Eastern time in the United States. But we work with people from all over the world, and they just come to phoenixregenetics.org. They sign up, and then it's just a free activation.
I did that sometime, I think, in 2022. And
That's
I
been
think it stretched into 2023.
right, because once you do that, you experience that, the effects kind of roll out for about 9 months.
And I have felt that I continue to have effects continuing after that. But of course, I've been doing a lot of different kinds of work that interrelate with your other work.
Yes.
And it's difficult for me to quantify what that is. I have this great introduction I wrote that I was going to read about you at the beginning. I'm going to do it now.
Okay.
Okay. This is supposed to be the first 5 minutes. We'll do it now. We're nonlinear.
I like it.
Thank you for tuning in today for this live simulti-stream broadcast episode of Intuitive Public TV, exploring the intuitive unknown there we go. Oh, I hit the right button. That's great. I am Megan Elizabeth Morris, founding coordinator of the Intuitive Community Media Network. And I have the pleasure once again to be speaking with Sol Luckman, author of international best-selling wellness nonfiction and multi-award-winning visionary fiction, indie music, emotive visual art, and multimedia magic. Sol has become a great friend of the Intuitive Network, and his body of work has significantly impacted me personally, along with many more of his readers, supporters, and subscribers. I have had an amazing adventure of a day leading up to this broadcast. Impossible things happened today. I was keeping my schedule clear so that I could rest, because rest was necessary. And then some things happened. And I said to my body, do you need to cancel? Do we need to cancel? Respect the body. What does the body need? I'm ready. I'm ready to cancel whatever I need to cancel. What do I need to do? And the body said, no, do all of it. And I did. And I've learned a lot about energetic practices over many years. I've had to use them on the cusp of death a lot. And I was using them before I was on the cusp of death a lot. So there are a lot of modalities that are really familiar to me. But when I was reading the review copy of Get Out of Here Alive, which I'm still rereading, it's great material. You have a succinctness and a relationality about the kinds of subjects that you bring together, that I found myself clicking into practices that had been really very difficult for me to bring together. Like I had managed it in this way over here, or in this way over here, but something got really clear and steady for me when I finished the first read through of that book. And then it started changing because I needed to adapt it to what was best for me. But it's been getting more and more solid. And I shouldn't have been able to do what I did today. I would have thought that it was not possible. And I felt called to it. And I felt, no, something else is happening here. I'm going to have faith in this. And then I say to myself, but I have this broadcast with Sol later. I don't want to mess it up. Right. And I was like, no, I'm not, it's not going to get messed up. I'm going to do the thing. And it's been a pretty magical day.
Your energy is great. I mean, you can, I'm really impressed by how on point you are right now. And at the end of the day, when admittedly a lot of stuff was going on.
Well, I left the introduction till about 10 minutes in.
Yeah, but
Other than that,
the non-linear aspect of things, one of our goals in this human hero's journey is to learn to go non-linear and multi-dimensional. So there you have it.
returning viewers will notice our new intuitive unknown feature artwork for Intuitive Public TV, which is important because in the Intuitive Network, our groups coordinating content for the intuitive unknown were the first of us to discover your work, Sol, and to start robustly sharing it and talking about it and benefiting from it at intersections where people are totally abandoned. People are in such severe states that if they give accurate details about what's happening to them, it scares the people they're telling. The people they're telling shut down, get traumatized, and stay away from them.
I can understand that.
And they're not expected to survive. They're treated as if they're dead. I have been one of these people. And my ability to bring my energies and my capacities in service to these groups of people who have nowhere else to go has been so amazingly strengthened by just the fact of your work in the world, the fact of you doing research at the intersections that you do, and the way that you describe your understandings of how energy works, how dialogic imagining creates reality. We've found this to be far more powerful than people realize. And in situations where people can't reach safe food or safe water or emergency supplies or medical care. Certainly, they can't access respectful medical care, and often they can't access any medical care. Um, for us to be able to access resourcing that talks about building energetic skills is really, really important, but it's mostly missing because what usually happens is that who are surviving really severe circumstances, they reach out for metaphysical resourcing, and they often get preyed upon by the metaphysical resourcing that they find.
Yes. Yes. I would say that one of the hallmarks of the approach that I take to energy work and self-empowerment is that you can take a bad situation, a personal one or a more group level one in society, a community in society, in the world, and actually absorb that energy and make it your own, purify it, and then use it for your own benefit and then for the benefit of others. It's
Yeah.
extraordinary. So you really can take lemons and make lemonade energetically in this world. And that's a huge lesson. Most people just get lost in fighting things that seem unfair or unjust, or running from them, or being in denial about them, judging them. But rarely do they see them for what they are. And in essence, they're opportunities for transcendence. And that's really tough medicine for people who are in seriously detrimental and dangerous situations. And um, one can be forgiven for not being able to see the forest for the trees under those circumstances. But if we're able to step back a little bit, some of the very greatest blessings in our lives come through adversity. This is the dynamic that I write about in my Regenetics books, which is, breakdown is often a precondition for breakthrough.
Yes. And without any resource that talks about that in a way that highlights how to avoid being preyed upon, it's been really extensively co-opted in the world, and a lot of vulnerable people have some of the most terrible experiences as a result of that. And I want to particularly highlight, for instance, I think it was the previous book you released or the one before that, The World Cult and You, which we talked about in broadcasts over the last year or two.
Yeah,
Um,
the previous book.
where I've brought this up to you, there are other people talking about some of the things that you're talking about, but noticeably absent from most of them is a discussion of what cult behavior is.
Yes.
And if they're not mentioning that, there's often a pretty big problem. And in fact, in many of those resources, in many of those communities, if you try to bring up that there's something problematic happening, you get squashed really quick. So if you're severely disabled already, if you've already survived trauma, if you're already highly sensitive, it's a wild wilderness out there.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, the cult dynamic that you were alluding to is this idea that cults are designed to co-opt people's energy and to send it up the food chain to cult leaders and their handlers, and ultimately to the false god of this quote unquote reality. I mean, it's kind of a large vision here, but without understanding it, it's hard to understand why we would be preyed upon as a species the way that we are, because we are being preyed upon. It's very obvious, energetically and otherwise. And we have to start with that realization. That's the breakdown. That's the kind of intense moment, the very difficult aha. And then the breakthrough is to learn that we can reverse that dynamic and how to go about doing it. So really, Get Out of Here Alive is a continuation of various discussions that we've been having over the last few years, but it's also it breaks new ground into how to really absorb that energy and utilize it for your own purposes. So you can take back your own energy, but you can also take back the energy that would otherwise be going to feed the cult leaders, their handlers, the yes men and women, and the apex predator at the top of the whole food chain.
And I'd love to bring in, I was having a conversation with Johanna about some of these dynamics. Johanna Otigam, you popped in on our Upmarket Magazine broadcast the other day. Thank you.
Sure did.
So we were talking about some of this, and she reminded me, I hadn't thought about it in a bunch of years, but Pema Chodron, and I'm sure many others, teach the practice of Tonglen. And I think it's a Buddhist practice or a Zen practice. I don't remember very much about it, but Johanna mentioned it, and I suddenly remembered, oh, wow, I had studied that. I just remember little threads of it. And it's something like breathing in the suffering, the sadness, the difficult feelings, breathing out love and gratitude and care. And so it's a purification exercise, it seems to me. It's a transmutation exercise. And there are a lot of people who say, well, I don't, I just want to stay away from those energies, which is really understandable. And many of us have found ourselves at intersections where it's not possible to just leave it. It's going on around people in really intensive ways. And to have practices of transmuting it, of converting it into positive life honoring energy is a really powerful thing.
It is. It's really, really powerful. One thing I would say about the transmutational process that you were just mentioning from Pema Chodron's work is that what I'm proposing is a little bit different, and it's perhaps a little bit more selfish than that. at least, at least it starts out that way. You basically are absorbing energy that would otherwise be misused or lost to other people. And when you do it, you are taking in energy that has other people's and other beings' intent on that energy. That's a signature. So it's potentially bad energy, right? If you want to put it in the simplest terms. So part of what you do is you have to actually assume the mental and emotional and energetic stance of an apex predator yourself, and you feed on that energy. You are fed by it. And in making it yours, you align it with your wavelength, and you can take it in and utilize it, and it will no longer have those negative imprints.
Mhm.
But you can't be weak-willed about it. You have to be an apex predator in your mind, at least entertain this idea to feast on that energy that you've taken in. And when you've done that, then you can do other things with the energy that are extremely positive. And that would be perhaps the purification phase that you were mentioning, where you're maybe breathing out in a way the compassion or love. But in the beginning, really, you don't even care about all that. You're trying to survive and trying to make yourself stronger and break the bonds that are keeping you down. Then when you've healed yourself, then we can have a conversation about healing the world. That's really my teaching, is that we can't start by healing the world.
I think that's a really important distinction. And I also want to say about the purification, I've been thinking about the purification element as like you were talking about, and I might not use quite the right words, quite your words in it, but you were talking about the energetic stomach being an energetic organ of purification. So
Yes.
I've been starting with my body, noticing, oh, like where have these negative energies already been preying upon me, and where am I turning the tables on them, and saying, look, here's your chance to vamoose, because if you do not, I'm gonna eat you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You have to do that. Otherwise, timidity is not one's friend in these circumstances. It really keeps one from reaching the fullness of our potential. I mean,
Yeah.
really, and we have been taught to be timid and to bow our heads and to be respectful little sheeple. And I'm here to tell you that's not a solution to most of our problems.
Well, it results in people not realizing that they can be powerful enough to choose to balance their bodies and their energetic environments in the way that natural predators balance an ecosystem. We talk a lot about the bad predators, but we got to also talk about the good predators. The
I,
predators who are not the dishonorable, toxic, life destroy like not just life destroying, but um anti-life, earth dishonoring predators.
mm, mm,
And I kind of hesitate around that languaging because I am really into the verbiage as regards dancing with the adversary as valid, valuable teacher.
sure, sure,
Being grateful for what we learn in this world instance on this game board, which is very, very hard for a lot of people, but also crucial in order to open up blessings from the worst of the worst things happening to a person. So even, the dishonorable predators, they have their place in a system. And I also want to mention, in terms of the magpie and why I am drawn to the magpie, we there's a yin and yang thing happening here. There's a darkness and light thing happening here.
yeah.
There's a hero and villain, right?
That
That
the magpie
keeps,
is the trickster. And
yeah.
so in Get Out of Here Alive, I talk about the ghost in the machine, and that is your inner trickster. That is your inner Loki, and it's what unites the subconscious and the conscious and the unconscious realms. It's what unites uh, good and evil, quote unquote. It's what unites black and white. Uh, and it's the great mediator, but it often does this through trickery, through illusion, through imaginative acts, and just downright kind of sneaky playfulness and other things. One of the meditations that was, I hesitate to call it a meditation, but that I share in Get Out of Here Alive has to do with not in Get Out of Here Alive. Actually, I'm sharing that more in PragmAlchemy, the
Yes.
the body work and breath work and energetic work that I'm teaching these days. But it has to do with uh, actually beginning to connect with this ghost in the machine, this luminous child, this magical child, the alchemical child within us, and doing that in my own personal experience, when you actually make contact with yourself in that form, which is what you're doing, you will be very playful, or I've been extremely playful with me, constantly doing silly, absolutely goofy things that seem totally unsolicited and as if it's coming from a different being, but I know it's me, it looks like me, it is me, but it's just the part of me that's been kind of asleep.
Yeah. That hasn't been freed until that. And that experience is really hard for me to describe, and it's individual for each person. I don't know if mine will necessarily map onto yours, but I recognize a lot of what you're saying, and it's really revitalizing. It's really energizing.
Hey, we have a comment on our little chat here. Cheryl Ann Rubner, who's got some interesting stuff going on with astrology, poetry, and healing. She says that there's a Lakota story about the magpie winning the race of all the animals by perching on the back of buffaloes, thus saving the human race. So that's very, very cool. Thank you for sharing that, Cheryl.
Thank you, thank you. I get really excited about magpie stories. Thank you, Rue. Did I get all of them? Yes, I did. Okay, good. I wanted to make sure those went up on the screen. I would like to show my photos of the Ouroboros package that I received for PragmAlchemy. I I've been very interested in the interrelationships between Get Out of Here Alive and PragmAlchemy. There's a lot of flow between them, and maybe you would like to speak to that more, Sol, while I step us through some pictures.
Oh yeah, well, I'll comment maybe on the pictures. The obviously we're talking about the. I'll pronounce it Ouroboros. It's probably pronounced in.
What did I say? Did I say Ouroboros?
Mm, I mean, it's probably pronounced that way as well. I mean, you may even be correct. I've been pronouncing it Ouroboros. So it's the serpent. It's the alchemical symbol of the serpent or the dragon
Mm.
biting its own tail, the snake, and consuming itself even as it is kind of creating itself. And I take that as a, as a huge motif in Get Out of Here Alive. And when I designed the wood block that's for creating myofascial release and decompression for PragmAlchemy, that Lee and I decided to call it. It was her idea to call it the Ouroboros. I thought it was an inspired idea. Cool.
So here is mine.
And you took it out of its little pouch, huh? You have the little.
Yep, I have a picture of it though.
Nice, nice.
It's really beautiful.
I'm glad you think so.
I have a
Really,
zillion
you
questions.
wouldn't believe that some of the snarky comments. So you've got this little decorated piece of wood with a drawing on it or something like that. I mean,
I
people
know,
have no
I
idea.
know.
They have no idea. We had a master craftsman
I
make
could,
these things.
it feels that way.
It is an amazing achievement and the greatest of all yoga blocks.
I really love it. I really, really love it. Let me put my pictures up on the screen here. Let's see. Oh, that's not I got to hit the right button. There we go. This is the note that you wrote to me. Thank you for this note. Opening this box was amazing, by the way. It was really, really awesome. There's the top. I like the little sticker. I saved the sticker.
Cool.
I really love this. Here, I have this too. I can put it on the screen. I've never done this before. I've never tried to, I have not ever made slides for a broadcast. I didn't know how to do that before I did that for this. Thank you, Sol Luckman, for yet another way that you have helped me upgrade my functions.
I don't even know how to do that.
Well, I could teach you.
Well,
I can help you.
I may take you up on that.
So this is one of Sol's artworks from Pixels. And then see, I don't think I got pictures of everything.
That one's called Hyperspace, and it's done with ink. And I'm using a brush, and I'm literally slapping this very thick ink onto a black background and creating that image.
How big was the original?
It's not huge. It's a work on paper. It's probably about 14 by 20 or something like that inches.
It's gorgeous. Oh, that's the end of those slides. Okay, wait, now I have these ones. Aha. There's the beautiful bag that the Ouroboros comes in. Would you like to say, and Sol, I want to check in with you because we meant to end the broadcast a little bit sooner, but I can stay if you're all right to stay a few minutes longer.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Do you want to say about why it's called the Ouroboros? Why the block is the Ouroboros?
Yeah, it's because the block is the touchstone for this combination of breath work, body work, and energy work. And it's the place where you press. It's using an outer pressure to allow you to go inward, or you're pressing in order to go outward into greater possibilities, however you want to look at it. But it's that paradoxical, absurdly profound moment where the whole process of becoming starts and finishes. It's the alpha and the omega in some ways. It's so the using that name for the block, which is the basic tool of the PragmAlchemy exercises, just seemed obvious once Lee brought it up.
It's a really beautiful centerpiece to the whole discussion. I know that you made packages available that where if someone's not ready to get the block yet, that they can. If I understood that correctly, did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, there's just different levels. Like you can try the PragmAlchemy exercises, some of them anyway, with just taking a hand towel and rolling it up to where it's very tight and it's about the size of a small bread loaf or something like that. And you can lie down on it. You can feel that compression up into your abdominal area and get a sense of how this might work with a more powerful piece of equipment like the Ouroboros, which is designed to allow you to create pressure on your connective tissue in various places in your body so that it releases the fascial adhesions, the connective tissue adhesions that are grappling onto your bone.
Yeah.
You can't really do that unless you have time and pressure. And so this tool is designed to create the pressure, and you hold it for a minimum of 3 minutes in each spot. And when you do that, the adhesion begins to melt, and that is decompression as opposed to just release. You're not doing a superficial releasing, you're really decompressing. So the whole fascial structure begins to let go of what's been holding you in malalignment, and it creates more space in the body for increased breath, which then increases your energy and allows you to store more and more and more energy.
And what you're talking about with the fascia is something that I have needed for a long time. And you and I have been talking about block therapy,
Yeah.
different kinds.
Yes.
But I'm so grateful that I didn't get to move on it sooner, because then you released this and the timing was perfect. We've had emergencies here because of difficult things going on in my body. And one of the things that became very, very clear recently was that I have to have a way of working with, I don't know how to say, the crevices around the bowl of the pelvis, and where the front viscera
Mm.
are,
Yeah.
is a bunch of very difficult life and death situations happen because of what's going on in those areas of the body. And the more that I've learned about this, the more clear it is that I don't know of a better approach for me in that. And one of the things that I want to ask you, I don't know if I should ask you now or if we should do it in our next segment. We can kind of wing it and decide on the fly. Is that part of the here? Wait, let's see. This is Oh, here we go. The Potentiate Your DNA book came. That's beautiful too. The magnet came with the package that I got. And oh, and you signed the book, which I loved. I'm getting to this photo because I've been wanting a tuning fork for years, because I really want to learn a lot more about your process in that. But I have to be careful because I must not do, my understanding is I must not do the potentiation practices at the same time as the PragmAlchemy exercises, it sounds like. And I'm still fuzzy on that. So we might not want to talk about that now, but we can. I'll let you lead because I want to respect your time. But I'm
I
really
don't
into
have
this
anything
conversation.
planned. Yeah, me too. So let's just go with it, if that's all
Okay.
right with you. Let me
Yeah.
one thing really quickly. The other aspect of the Ouroboros block is that it has the rounded corners and the soft rounded edges, so that if you're lying on top of this thing, it's not digging into you uncomfortably and hurting you.
Right.
So a lot of yoga blocks are cheap, and they have not been properly sanded around those edges to create the contours that will allow you to create the pressure safely that you need to
Yeah.
undo the fascial adhesions.
It's really, really wonderful.
And I also certainly want to give a shout out to the whole block therapy world and Deanna Hansen and her development of that. She wrote Fluid Isometrics. She's really brilliant. Certainly, I credit her on the PragmAlchemy homepage on solluckman.substack.com. I talk about her work and other people's work, like Joseph Pilates. He was an inspiration behind this work. There's the work of called orthobionomy, which is really amazing work that some of the exercises that have yet to be published will incorporate more of that kind of gentle gentle release and decompression without even using pressure. It's really cool what you can do with just certain body positions held over a certain period of time.
Would you say that this block could be used also because I'm very interested in exploring more of the other block related modalities. Block therapy looked wonderful, but also for me, when I have a relationship, when I'm collaborating with a person, I have much better results for whatever the practice is that I'm learning. So it makes so much sense for me to do this first. Do you think that this block could be used for her block therapy, or would that be not in alignment, do you think?
Well, I'm not going to speak for her, but as somebody who has done a lot of block therapy, I'm not a teacher or a practitioner, and I'm not affiliated with Deanna or block therapy,
Mhm.
but I use it all the time that way personally, and I really love block therapies. Blocks. There's something called the block buddy and the block baby, and
Yeah.
they are a little different from this particular block, and so I found that and I even created a block that we haven't even released yet that. And I don't know if we'll ever get around to releasing it, but it's a slightly different shape that we haven't, put into production at this point in time. But in any case, each block is very different in the way you can use it. And this can depend on the size of the block, the shape of the block, how long it is, how much what kind of stable sides it has in terms of like being able to stand on the block in certain ways and that kind of thing. I mean, there's just all sorts of nuances that as you become more familiar with your body experiencing decompression like this, it's very clear that not all blocks are created equal. So the advantages, I don't even want to call them advantages. They're just some differences. This block is coated with it's solid cherry wood, and
Mhm.
it's got a non-stick finish, it's a non-toxic non-stick finish, and you can stand on this block in a very stable way, as an example, and just not slip and slide the way that you tend to do a little bit more on block therapy blocks.
Okay.
Not that that's a huge problem with those, but this has more of a satisfying feel like on your feet. It's hard to explain, and the fact that it's not quite as rounded as the block therapy blocks means that you can get at little incremental adhesions. Like you could put your foot just over the edge of the block or your feet and just stand with your toes over the edge, and you can slowly stay there for 3 minutes, and then you can push out another half an inch and stay there for 3 minutes, and each spot will get this beautiful fascial release. You could literally spend half an hour just working on your feet. This is something you do from a kind of block therapy standpoint. The next PragmAlchemy exercise that I will be sharing in a couple of months is called Quetzalcoatl Rising, and it's based on a standing position on the block, and it's bringing that serpentine Kundalini energy up through the legs into the body, and using breathing and visualization to make that happen. So, if I could speak to the Regenetics question, all I really said was that Regenetics is very powerful and can cause detoxification, Herxheimer responses in the body, reactions. So can PragmAlchemy and block therapy for that matter. So you just want to make sure that you're not doing too much. If you're doing Regenetics, you don't want to do tons and tons and tons of PragmAlchemy. You want to just work up to larger, longer stints so that your body can adjust to what might be happening in terms of melting adhesions. Think about your body with all of this connective tissue. Some of it's scar tissue. It's hardened. It's holding you in place, and it stores all of these toxins that you've accumulated by breathing and eating weird stuff and absorbing through your skin. And then you decompress an area like that, and it kind of melts, and your lymph and blood come in and clean up that goop and start removing it from your body. And if you overload your eliminative channels, you're going to feel it, and you might have headaches or intestinal distress or whatever as this stuff is coming out. So you can definitely do both, and I
Okay.
think that's a great idea. But just know that they're both extremely powerful modalities.
Right. I have found myself to be really, really sensitive to small amounts of
Yes,
things,
yes, and
which
it's
is good.
exactly for somebody like you, Max, that that's why I stressed that in the material so that people just, you know, they have some full disclosure going in that this can begin to mobilize toxicity, and that's going to have consequences.
So if I want to very carefully in tiny increments start, because I love this book. I love conscious healing and I love this book. And being able to get a package, I mean, we got that package because of a very terrible emergency that I had. And I know that if I don't start working with the areas of the viscera in the necessary ways, that I'm probably going to keep having those problems. I can't keep having those problems. But for me to be able to get a package that not only had the block and the exercises, but also had this book and a tuning fork, it was a magical just after my birthday gift for me to, I mean, emergency or no emergency, it was really great that that happened. So if I start learning your process for potentiation with the tuning fork in tiny increments and start doing PragmAlchemy with the block in tiny increments, then I'll just see how that goes and be very cautious. Does that align with what you're cautioning people about?
Well, your situation is probably different from some other people who might be listening to this and learning about this work for the first time because you've done potentiation. You've been through
Right.
the process. So I would no longer put you in that discussion. I would
Okay.
say you would probably have more of a green light to experiment more aggressively without going too far with PragmAlchemy. Other people, if they wanted to begin experiencing potentiation, you know, and they want to combine that with PragmAlchemy, which is absolutely fine and can produce some really interesting results, benefits. Just know that you're doing two modalities simultaneously that both individually have the power to mobilize toxicity. So
Yeah.
just we tend to want to heal so fast that we don't realize that we're not well for a reason, and that our body has really locked us down in a lot of ways, and that's where the fascia comes into play. It's the fascia that are part of the lockdown squad that keeps various things corralled into manageable spaces, even if it creates illness or discomfort or dysfunction. It's almost like the fascia is amber and all the stuff is like bugs is like frozen in it, and then you melt it and all that stuff starts to move.
And I will say also that for people who are tuning in from places of particular sensitivity, particular extremity that is being experienced in our groups in the intuitive network, we are always doing what we can to support one another in conversations about finding the tiniest increments,
Yes.
even tinier increments, even tinier increments. A big part of my problem for a long time was my brain could not conceptualize tiny enough increments. I didn't have any social support for that. So I'll put briefly, these are our chats, community IPR and real relational on Telegram. Anyone is welcome to come and be part of our conversations and participate in groups where we're talking about these things. And a lot of what I do in groups in the network is when we're sharing around your public posts, Sol, there are points of adaptation to extreme situations that we're always talking about. Because people who have really compounded circumstances, people who are in the midst of ongoing violence, like we have to think of these things a bit differently than people who are in more stable, more able-bodied positions. And so we're talking about that all the time so that we can create access points to the aspects of this work that is so life-saving. I have found it to be so life-saving, and what I'm able to bring into groups, we have had miracles occur because we were centering some of the modalities that you talk about in a lot of the different books that you've shared. Like you repeat some really, really important stuff, and I really want to encourage people to support your Substack. You have a really great paid subscription. I think you've said one man Netflix, but it's way more than that.
I appreciate it.
There's a lot of video there to absorb. There are a lot of audiobooks in there. But there's a massive amount of really, really helpful stuff that can be accessed. And there's stuff in there that you don't have anywhere else. Like The World Cult in You isn't anywhere else. And I really, really loved that book.
Oh, I really appreciate that. Yeah, I do have some exclusive content, and I'm wanting to create more exclusive content. Right now, the Get Out of Here Alive is in a pre-publication phase where we're actively asking for people to just download a free copy and review it on Amazon or Goodreads or BookBub. There's some other places that people might be able to review that book. But anyway, that's free, and I'm going to be beginning the serialization of the audiobook version on Substack for paid subscribers pretty soon. I've been doing the reading of it, and I took that on myself. I had a couple of different people approach me wanting to read it and who had read it, and they were just really excited about it. And I nearly made an agreement with somebody to do that, and all the while I knew that I needed to be the one to read it. So I finally just got out of denial and took the bull by the horns.
That's so
Started.
great.
So that will be out there. If you don't mind, I would love to speak for just a second to how to incrementalize some of this process. So that
Please do. That would be amazing.
so one thing you can do is, first of all, it's really, really important to honor where your body is and where it's not, and to not compare it to anybody else's. I don't care what somebody else can do. The only thing that matters is what you can do and what can benefit you. So in a situation where you're talking about lying down on a wooden block with it kind of at your belly button area, right? That may not be where everybody can start. It may be too tight or too uncomfortable there. It's certainly possible, and it may be too tight or uncomfortable to leave it as long as you might need to get the full effect of fascial decompression. So what can you do? Well, you can lie on your back. You could put the block on your belly and put your hands and just use the weight of your hands. You could right on your belly button. You could put the block flat, or you could put it lengthwise or left to right with the edge pressed against the abdominal area, and you could leave it there for 3 minutes. So 3 minutes is this magical time that it takes to begin melting the fascia. You can do these exercises for longer, but 3 minutes of the actual decompression is a minimum to get the decompression effect. So you can then work up to the first exercise, which is energy intake in the cauldron position. And it's about a 5-minute process. And it involves the body work with the Ouroboros and your own breath work and visualization. That's what it is. And you're typically lying on a floor, but you could lie on a bed. You could be lying on your back if you needed to reverse the whole process and not put your full weight on the block. And you would do that. I would do it and see how I felt the next day, and before just hauling off and just doing it over and over and over, see if things mobilize. Typically, if you begin to do it in these increments, you'll get a sense of what it's doing for you, how it's moving things, and you can begin to just increase incrementally the time you spend doing it.
I think that's really great advice, and it's a really clear explanation. I'm really grateful for that. We should clip that, and we should share that clip particularly. I want to get a picture of your book cover up on the screen too, so that people will recognize it immediately. Let's see if I did this right. Wait, oh, what? Why is it cut off at the bottom? Well, that's not okay. I got to do it
Fine.
again.
It's fine. I mean, that's the advanced review copy, but it's got a quote by Miguel Connor there, who's got a new book coming out in April with Inner Traditions called The Occult Elvis, which is I just I just posted my review of his book on my Substack, and our books are so similar in so many ways, it's uncanny.
I'm really interested to check that out. And you've been referencing a lot of good material in this book too. Some of which I have read some of, but I added a lot of things to my reading list and to my rereading list as a result of what I had been reading in Get Out of Here Alive. I have loved revisiting Castaneda, which I haven't looked at for a really long time.
Yeah, yeah. That's I mean, those books are so wonderful. I mean, there's the ongoing conversation about whether they're fact or fiction, and
Right.
you know where I stand on that. What is fact? What is the difference between fact and fiction? You tell me. Show me the difference.
Yeah.
But in any case, they are so inspirational for taking that inward journey and being selfish with it, really working on healing yourself first. That's a huge message in those books. And I hope in some small way I've continued to get people to think about this as a strategy for becoming.
I really loved that you mentioned Arnold Midell too. It
Yeah.
was great. It was just that little bit, but I was like, yes, dream body is exactly on subject with this material in a major way.
Well, I don't know if did you ever read Snooze? I can't remember.
I've been reading Snooze non-linearly for years, but I haven't done it cover to cover yet. I have the paperback now, and I'm wanting to read it cover to cover, but I keep dipping into it in
Yeah,
different
that's
spots.
fine. Well,
But I
that
love
really
it.
is that's a novel about the dream body.
Right.
And we're also back to the Ghost in the Machine. That's really the dream body as well.
Mhm.
And it's all the same. It's just got different nomenclature and different lenses through which we can view it. What I have really endeavored to do in across these books is to make some of this esoteric, occult, metaphysical stuff that a lot of people get confused by, and take it and make it understandable, and to network it with itself so that people can see the different moving parts and how it's actually not that complicated. There are some basic principles and basic working parts. When
Mhm.
you understand those, then you can actually chart a very clear path of empowerment. It's exactly clear what you need to be doing. Until that point, I think there's just a lot of intentional confusion that's been strewn out, in various religions and cults and sects and doctrines and dogmas for so long. It's all part of the what I call the loosh fest, where our energy is taken away through confusion and fear and general chaos. But the chaos is always managed, and that should tell you something.
It's a really interesting spacescape to be swimming through.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I could talk to you for ages. Our plan, which I didn't hold to, because I mean, how could I? It's been a while since we were able to do this. We were going to do 30 minutes.
Right. I heard that, Max, and thought it's just not going to happen.
Maybe it'll happen next time.
Maybe.
Um, it's so important for us to have more easily digestible segments, and I have noticed that I don't yet have the capacity back to do like I chopped up our previous conversations, but what it took for it was just what it took for me to do it was like epic.
Now, are you
So
aware on Substack that if
yeah.
you upload the video to Substack,
Mhm.
it'll ask you for share images, and then it will give you the option to cut segments with titles out of your video? and it'll do it for you. And all you have to do is keep hitting, just make the video, and you download it. It will do that work for you,
Will
and
it do large ones instead of
it
just small ones?
it will do them. They're usually about 30 seconds to 2 minutes,
Okay.
and they're on topics.
I need to look more closely at it. I've seen it a bit, and I'm still rehabbing the part of my brain that can choose clips. I start to see, oh, I
Yes,
could do this
clips.
clip, or I could do this clip, or I could do this other clip, or I could do this other clip. Oh no, which one do I do? I have to go rest now instead of doing any of those things. So that's my current process with making clips.
Well, the nice thing is that with the clips, if you just take the clips that it gives you and you download all of those, you will have
Mhm.
a certain amount of material that you don't have to process or reprocess. You can just put it out there with the title, or you could finesse the title, of course. But there it is, and it's usually on a specific point.
Yeah. I got to take a closer look at it again. Thank you for bringing it up.
You just make your life easier.
We gotta keep finding ways, and I have rebuilt a lot of my brain function watching you craft your media messaging and your structures for delivering different kinds of multimedia to your audiences, and I've really appreciated that, the collaborative energy and getting to dialogue with you directly as we've been collaborating in different ways. That's been huge for my brain repair. So I
Mm.
really appreciate that too.
Oh, I'm thrilled to hear that. I mean, I'm just absolutely thrilled. I mean, I know, you know, you in the past, it seemed like you were able to summon the wherewithal to have a long, very interesting discussion, but I could tell you were really, kind of strapped in, in making that happen. And this just seems like there's just more natural energy flowing through you, for lack of a better way of describing it.
It's more and more different, and I would love to talk with you here in the live simulti-stream broadcast as often as you might be available to do it, so that we can unfold more of that, because, dude, there is so much about the experience of Regenetics and potentiation for me. Just with that, I just did the worldwide ceremony, that free monthly worldwide ceremony that you do. That's 30 minutes. You do it while sleeping. And knowing about the process is a really, really powerful thing to read what you've laid out about it. So there's a lot that I would like to share more about and have your reflections on, and your experiences of how that all came together. And so I'm really looking forward to doing this again. I mean, let's wrap it up at an hour, I guess.
That sounds good.
And we're definitely going to do half hours in the future, but now we have this new recent introduction, and it's been such a pleasure.
Oh, it really has been a pleasure and an honor. I really appreciate it. I'm so happy to just hear how well you're doing, and that this work has meant something to you and your community.
All right. Well, I think today is a really huge win. Thank you for being part of my really huge win. Everyone who sees this video, I hope you will visit Sol Luckman on Substack. Sol Luckman Uncensored is at solluckman.substack.com. You can find more Intuitive Public TV, Intuitive Unknown, Intuitive Public Radio at www.intuitivepublicradio.network. And please join us on Telegram, t.me/realrelational or community IPR. Those are where we're gathering in public. I want to really invite people to come and talk about these subjects, because these subjects are so important. And people can bring questions that I will bring here when we're broadcasting with Sol, and we can get some questions answered, whether people are able to join us in the comments during the live or not. So let's keep doing this. This is a really awesome, life-affirming thing. Thank you so much, Sol, for being here today.
My pleasure, and I look forward to our next chat.